My husband's account is bone dry, lol. Feel grateful for whatever little change is left for you guys.
Help yourself. Mom and my brother felt the same, though they didn't say it out loud. Everything happened just as my brother said it would. The whole family burst into laughter at Sael, who fell right into our trap. My name is Sarah. Last year, my brother Travis passed away. He had been in the hospital for 6 months before he passed away peacefully in his sleep one early morning. He was only 35. I am one of 3 siblings, Travis, me, and my younger brother Yale, each of us 2 years apart. Only Travis was married, Yale and I are still single. When Travis first brought his then-girlfriend Rose home, I instantly disliked her. Initially, I was excited at the prospect of having a sister, since I only had brothers. But my first impression of her was the worst. Nice to meet you. Rose sat next to Travis in the living room, where the whole family had gathered. Smiling and looking cute, she was 5 years older than Travis and worked in the apparel industry. They apparently met through mutual friends. Honestly, I found Travis's smitten look a bit too much, but it was his first girlfriend, so I figured it was understandable. While I was laughing at Travis, Rose suddenly asked, "Is this house a rental?" What? What did she just say? I thought I misheard for a moment. Did she just ask if this house was a rental? Why would she ask that? While I was pondering this, Mom laughed and replied, "This house was built by our late dad. It's owned, not rented." Why do you ask? So I hadn't misheard. An indescribable feeling of discomfort began to spread inside me.
That's good. I knew Dad had passed, but you're a single mother, right? I was wondering if you were poor.
I felt angry. Indeed, single mothers often give the impression of struggling financially, but our family was not in financial distress. Thanks to Mom working hard and the substantial inheritance Dad left behind. Dad passed away in his 40s due to illness. At that time, Travis was in 10th grade, I was in 8th, and Yale was only in 6th. It must have been hard for Dad to leave Mom and his school-aged children behind. But he left us enough money for our education and this house. I felt like his intentions were being tarnished, and I instantly disliked her even more. Don't worry about weird stuff. Dad left us a fortune through insurance, and Mom is a department head at her company. All of us siblings are working, so we're financially stable. Travis, can't you see she's making no sense? Doesn't it bother you? They say love is blind, but this is something else.
But you know, once we're married, I become part of your family, right? If my husband's family is poor, that's trouble for me. I don't want that.
Wow, she's already thinking about marriage. I guess that makes sense since she's been brought home and all. But her as a Sael. I might need to rethink my relationship with Travis. After Travis said he'd walk her home and they left, I told Mom and Yale that I couldn't stand her.
Her as Travis's wife? Absolutely not. What's up with that woman? Yeah, that's a bit much. Worrying about money already? Kind of off-putting.
Indeed, not the most sensible thing to say. But when it comes to marriage, money matters are important, aren't they? If she's openly addressing her concerns instead of hiding them, well, that's somewhat endearing. Classic Mom, always so level-headed. Even after such a rude comment, she finds it cute. No wonder she's a successful sales director. Despite that first impression, I figured I'd just keep my distance and didn't strongly oppose Travis's marriage to her. A year after Travis brought Rose home, they got married. From then on, I only saw her during summer vacations and Christmas. I didn't have much personal interaction with Rose and managed to live my days without any particular discomfort. One day, Yale contacted me for advice. I had moved out when I started working and was living alone, while Yale, who had found a job within commuting distance from home, hadn't moved out yet. Yale told me that Rose had reached out to him. She had said, "How long are you going to parasite off your parents? You're an adult. You should move out and live on your own." I knew it was selfish, but I felt relieved when Yale said he'd commute from home. Mom had told us not to worry about it. But why would Rose say such a thing to Yale? Travis and she had their own place, so Yale being at home shouldn't be an issue. I told him, "Don't worry about it. I was able to move out because you stayed. I'm grateful for that." Then Yale shared a suspicion. "Recently, Rose has been visiting our house often. Mostly, she talks with Mom. She comes alone, has dinner that Mom made, gets Travis's portion packed in a container, and leaves. Can you believe it? The other day, after I came out of the shower, I overheard her talking with Mom in the living room. She said, 'It'll be lonely for you to live here alone if I move out. How about we live together? Maybe she's after this house?'" I couldn't believe what was happening. I spoke with Mom on the phone the other day, but she didn't mention anything about Rose. Maybe she didn't want to worry me. This gives me a bad feeling. After hanging up, I immediately called Travis. I asked him to meet because there was something I wanted to discuss. When I mentioned I wanted to talk about Rose, Travis seemed to have some concerns of his own and agreed to meet right away. After work, I headed to the pub Travis had picked. He was already there, having a beer. Travis, who I hadn't seen since last Christmas, seemed to have lost weight. It's been half a year since our last meeting. As I took a seat and ordered a beer, I asked Travis straight out, "Travis, are things okay with Rose? Do you guys talk? I heard she's been visiting home a lot. Do you know about that?"
Travis gave a wry smile and said, "You know too, Sarah? I'm aware she's been visiting Mom frequently. But she doesn't mention these visits when she's at our place." "So, how do you know?" "The dinner table is filled with Mom's cooking. You can't get that taste unless she's getting lessons or bringing food home from Mom's, right?" "Makes sense. Travis would recognize the taste of Mom's cooking." "Don't you talk to Rose about it? Normally, you'd mention it if you visited your spouse's family, right? I've never heard her mention it. Do you know that Rose has suggested living with Mom?" I didn't know that. Travis seemed off. He furrowed his brow and seemed deep in thought, before suddenly saying to me, "She spends money like water." "Huh? Spends money like water?" "Well, from Rose's appearance, it's clear she spends a lot on fashion. I only see her twice a year, but she always shows up in famous brand clothes, accessories, bags, and shoes. As far as I know, Rose is a housewife. Travis is an average salaryman, so I didn't think they could afford such luxuries. I assumed they were saving elsewhere, especially since they don't have children. I'm thinking about divorcing her. She took out loans without telling me, in my name. $50 from various credit companies and consumer finance firms. I found out when collection letters started arriving at the house. That's not all. She's been dipping into our savings too. Our account's at zero. It's laughable." Travis laughed with sad eyes, but I couldn't find it funny at all. Rose is indeed unreasonable and untrustworthy. My first impression wasn't wrong. Maybe I should have opposed their marriage more strongly. But seeing Travis in such pain, I couldn't say anything. According to Travis, Rose probably wanted to move in with Mom to free up the rent money for her own use. Indeed, owning the family home means no rent to pay. The entire amount they're currently paying for rent would be saved.
Plus, if Rose could get Mom to cover utilities and groceries, she'd have even more disposable income. And, apparently, she can't do any housework. Wait a minute, isn't she a housewife? Not working, not managing the house, Rose was just a leech on Travis's salary. That day, we had a moderate drink and called it a night. Travis said he'd get in touch if the divorce went through and waved goodbye. However, the next time Travis contacted me, it wasn't about a divorce. Travis had cancer. Advanced stage. I couldn't believe it until Travis, thinner than when I last saw him, came to our family home with his diagnosis. He handed us hospital admission papers, needing the family's signature. All we could do in front of Travis was cry. The same dreadful disease that took Dad was now claiming Travis. Of all things to inherit, Mom said to Dad's photo, "Why this?" Soon after, Travis was hospitalized. The doctors gave him 3 months to live. It was hospice care. After he was admitted, Rose was nowhere to be seen. Nearly 3 months have passed since his admission. The time the doctors gave him was almost up. Yet, Travis was still fighting. We visited him every week. Gradually, he lost his ability to do things, and after 5 months, he couldn't even get out of bed. During this time, Rose never visited once. The nurses confirmed it. Besides us, no one visited Travis. The hospital only allowed family visits, and the only family apart from us was Rose. Despite everything, the divorce never happened, and it seemed Travis would pass without it being finalized. Initially, I had strongly suggested Travis divorce, but after hearing his thoughts, I stopped. 6 months after his hospitalization, Travis passed away. We brought his body back to our family home. Travis must have been happy to be home after so long. Mom had apparently contacted Rose. As we were discussing with the funeral director, Rose showed up. I blurted out, "Get out," but on paper, Travis and Rose were still married. She retorted that she had the right to see him off, and I couldn't argue. Afterward, we, along with Travis, moved to the funeral home arranged by the funeral director. There, we held the wake and the funeral. Notifying Travis's friends, colleagues, and acquaintances, preparing for the funeral, it was all so busy. There was no time to mourn. But that helped us forget the pain of losing Travis. For Mom, losing both her beloved husband and son to the same disease was unimaginably painful, but she remained composed as the organizer till the end. Yale and I, overwhelmed by grief, often broke down in tears, causing much worry around us. After the funeral was over, Rose appeared before us again. Despite her claims of having the right to see him off, she attended neither the wake nor the funeral. Where had she been? Well, her absence was a relief for us. Her attire was flashy branded clothing, not mourning wear. What had she come for? Rose approached us and blurted out.
Was there any fundraising or financial assistance? How much was raised?
I was instantly seething with anger. She came to snatch the money collected at Travis's funeral.
Are you here for the donations? Leave now. And never show your face here again. What are you talking about? The donations collected for my husband's funeral belong to me. His wife. Hand them over quickly. There's no money for you. Get out.
Yale and I were shaking with rage as we yelled.
After all, you never once visited Travis in the hospital. What kind of wife are you? But we're not divorced, so I'm obviously his wife.
Rose, smirking, then heard Mom say calmly.
There were no donations or financial assistance. Everything went to the funeral expenses. We're actually short by about $500,000. As his wife, will you be covering that? That's for you to pay. There's Dad's inheritance, right? Besides, he didn't have much money, did he? His bank account only had $2,000.
Saying that, she pulled out a card from her branded bag. It was Travis's banking card. That card should have been among Travis's belongings we brought back from the hospice. With the funeral preparations, his belongings were left in the living room. Did she just take it without permission? I went to the bank and withdrew it all. Only bills from the ATM, no coins. Here, take the change. She then slammed Travis's banking card and a paper statement onto the table. Pulling it closer, I saw that indeed $2,000 was withdrawn, leaving just a few dollars. Tears of frustration and sadness overflowed.
Get out! Just get out!
Then Mom said to Rose, "That money belonged to my son. You shouldn't have withdrawn it without permission."
I'm his wife. I have the right to inherit his estate. Well, I'm his mom. I have inheritance rights too. You want to split just $2,000?
Yes, the account only had $2,000. That's his estate. You can have it. In return, we want nothing to do with you from now on. Agreed? She then grabbed Rose's arm, dragged her to the door, and locked it after pushing her out. For a while, we just looked at each other, then, unable to hold back, burst into laughter. Actually, we had anticipated Rose might steal the banking card and left it in Travis's belongings on purpose. This was all Travis's plan. After being hospitalized, while he still could, he quietly set his affairs in order. He changed the insurance beneficiary to Mom and transferred his share of Dad's inheritance to Yale and me. All these were measures to prevent anything from going to Rose. Travis wanted to divorce Rose, but devised a plan when he learned of his limited time. A plan to make Rose pay off the debts. Debts that she had accumulated. She should pay what she owed. Being a housewife with no credit, Rose couldn't borrow money. So, she had been using Travis's name to take out loans. After Travis decided to divorce, he planned to take legal action to transfer the debts to Rose, but then his illness was discovered. Legal proceedings take time. His life would likely end before the court's decision. So, Travis deliberately chose not to divorce. To leave Rose with the debts. Inheritance is not just about receiving assets. It also includes liabilities. Travis had a debt of $50,000, all created by Rose. He planned to make her inherit it. For this purpose, Travis prepared a banking card with only $2,000. Having relinquished everything else, Travis's estate consisted of the $2,000 in the account and the $50,000 debt. Upon his passing, Rose would undoubtedly try to get her hands on the banking card. So, he intentionally left it easily accessible in the bag. Sure enough, Rose would withdraw the cash swiftly and spend it just as quickly. The account was essentially bait. And Rose, not well versed in law, would likely leave things as they were. Meanwhile, we would complete the renunciation of inheritance. Thus, all of Travis's estate would belong to Rose. Travis repeatedly instructed us on this plan, ensuring its execution through his will. Afterward, we completed the renunciation of inheritance. Travis's will was fully executed. In 3 months, all of Travis's estate would legally be Rose's. 6 months passed uneventfully. Photos of Travis and Dad were lined up at the family home. One day, while visiting home and praying before their pictures, the doorbell rang. It was Rose.
Can we talk? I have something to say.
I didn't respond and turned off the doorbell. Then, loud banging at the door began.
Open up! I said I want to talk. Open the door now!
Amidst the banging, a heavier thud was heard, and Mom went to open the door. Rose barged in forcefully.
Hey! You have money, right? FIL's assets, inheritance. Hand over Travis's share.
She seemed to have realized the inheritance she had received. The existence of the negative inheritance. There's no such thing. You used up Travis's savings, didn't you? The only thing left was that $2,000.
Lies. Then give me this house. Travis was the eldest son, wasn't he? Shouldn't the eldest son inherit Dad's estate? Then as his wife, I should inherit this house. This house is mine.
The house is in my name. I inherited it from my husband. The children were still students at the time. So, you have no right to inherit it.
Why didn't the eldest son inherit anything? You people are crazy. Just give me whatever Travis was supposed to inherit.
I've said it multiple times, there's nothing left. Please, leave now.
No. This house is mine. I won't leave.
With that, she began forcefully throwing things around in the entryway. Mom and I quickly ran out, and the neighbor, who must have heard the commotion, came to see what was happening. We asked him to call the police. Soon, a patrol car arrived with sirens blaring, and sturdy police officers stepped out. After we explained the situation, the officers went inside and emerged shortly after, escorting Rose, who was screaming and shouting. Her tirade worsened when she saw us, but as the officers pushed her into the patrol car, she was taken away. Later, we heard that Rose was severely reprimanded at the police station and signed an agreement never to approach us again. It's almost a year since Travis passed away. Perhaps Dad and Travis are now peacefully having a drink together. Dad always dreamed of drinking with his son. Looking up at the clear sky, I was suddenly reminded of Dad and Travis's smiling faces.
You're just a wife, and I'm the precious daughter of this house. Wives are like housekeepers, right? You should just keep quiet and do as I say. Got it? Now get to work for me.
I calmly responded to my fuming Sael. I don't live in this house, you know.
Huh?
I'm Natalie, 25 years old. I had just married my husband, Christopher, who's the same age, 6 months ago. We lived together at my in-laws' house. My in-laws are reasonable and calm people. We've had a good relationship since we started dating. It was meant to be a temporary arrangement until our new home under construction was finished, but my in-laws warmly welcomed us. Once we got married, there was no sudden change in their attitude towards me. We lived together, respecting each other. Surrounded by my loving husband and kind in-laws, my married life seemed smooth sailing, but there was one thing that concerned me. That was my Sael, Mia. Mia, my husband's younger sister by a year, has disliked me from the first meeting. She'd say things like, "You look so unfashionable. Where did you buy those weird clothes? You have no sense of style," as she would spitefully speak and despise me. She's currently living with her boyfriend, but it seems things aren't going too well, and she frequently returns home. Whenever Mia comes back, she treats me, her Sael, almost like a housekeeper, bossing me around with various chores. My husband and in-laws would always scold her, but she never seemed to change her ways. One day, while I was doing chores with my Aria, Mil, and taking a break with some coffee, we heard a noise from the entrance. "I'm home." It seemed like Mia had returned. As I stood up with a bit of a heavy heart to make coffee, "Natalie, I want something sweet," she said. Repeated text. I took out some cookies from the kitchen cupboard and served them with coffee to Mia, but she complained. "Ugh, not this. Don't you have anything else? You really have no taste." I was in the mood for jasmine tea, but I guess I'll have to make do with this. "I'm sorry." Inside, I was irritated, but I thought it pointless to argue, so I held it in. Watching the scene, Arya began to scold Mia.
Mia, what on earth are you saying to Natalie? How is she supposed to know what you're feeling? Natalie is Christopher's wife, not your servant. And you've been coming back here almost every day. But have you properly talked things out with Stephen? Ugh, stop nagging. It's none of your business, is it, Mom?
Mia, like a petulant child, covered her ears, clearly not wanting to hear another word. Stephen is Mia's boyfriend, a genuinely nice and refreshing guy. In the early days of their relationship, they were so affectionate it was almost embarrassing to watch. And it seemed like they might even get married. However, after a few months of living together, they started having serious issues. Mia didn't do any housework and was reckless with money. On top of that, her infidelity came to light, leading Stephen to finally suggest breaking up. The apartment they lived in was rented under Stephen's name, and he apparently wanted her out as soon as possible. Despite this, Mia stubbornly refused to leave and had been dodging any discussions about it. I was utterly astounded by Mia's behavior but chose to stay silent and let it pass. Even if I offered advice, I doubted she would listen. Arya, addressing Mia, said, "Think about Stephen's feelings, not just your own. If you've done something wrong, you should apologize first." She spoke as if gently admonishing a small child, but Mia was just defiant and didn't seem to take it to heart. By the time Mia left, Arya was completely exhausted. "Arya, I'll take care of things from here. Please, rest a bit." When I said this, Arya gave a weary smile. "Thank you, Natalie. I think I will rest for a bit." Arya seemed quite worn out because of Mia. I wanted to be of some help to Arya. The next day was a holiday, so we had a late breakfast and were relaxing. While enjoying some light conversation, the doorbell rang. Who could that be? I'll go check. I stood up to check the monitor and saw Stephen standing there. Stephen's here. When I informed everyone, my Fael, John, looked a bit stern. Stephen, huh? It's been a while. Let him in. I went to the door and invited Stephen into the living room. When Stephen and I entered the living room, my in-laws bowed deeply, clearly feeling very sorry, and apologized to him. Stephen, it's been a while. We are truly sorry for what our foolish daughter has put you through. It must be our fault for how we raised her. She's an adult but can't differentiate between right and wrong. Seeing my in-laws bow their heads over Mia's behavior made my heart ache. My husband seemed to feel the same, his face crinkled with concern. Then Stephen, looking troubled, spoke up. Hello everyone, it's been a while. Please, raise your heads. It's not the parents' fault. I came today because I have something I need to discuss with you. We'll do anything we can. Please, don't hesitate to ask, Arya said eagerly. Stephen continued. Thank you. I'm sorry to have to say this, but I need your help convincing Mia to leave the apartment as soon as possible. I trusted her and allowed us to live together, and I'm deeply sorry it's come to this. With that, Stephen deeply apologized to my in-laws. He looked worn out, perhaps from lack of sleep, and his face was pale. Seeing him like this, John nodded firmly and said, You don't even have to ask. We'll make sure Mia understands she's been a nuisance. Arya added, Yes. Stephen, we're so sorry. After hearing my in-laws' response, Stephen seemed a bit relieved and gave a weak smile. After Stephen left, my in-laws discussed what to do about Mia. They decided to call Mia and try to persuade her, so my husband and I told them we'd be upstairs in our room if they needed us. 30 minutes later, Mia arrived, and from the living room downstairs, we could hear voices growing louder, occasionally interrupted by the sound of something breaking. Aria's scream, and Mia's furious shouting. My husband and I exchanged looks, trying to decide when to go downstairs to help, when we heard Aria's voice calling us.
Christopher, Natalie, could you come down here, please? Yes, we're coming,
I replied and immediately rushed downstairs with my husband. In the living room, we found an enraged Mia, a stern-faced John, and a worn-out Aria. The TV remote and Mia's bag were scattered on the floor, and the glass doors of the sideboard were shattered. I was stunned by the mess, but my husband calmly asked Aria,
Mom, are you okay?
Aria, looking tired, answered with a smile. Yes, I'm sorry to worry you. Then, John, exchanging a glance with Aria, declared, Christopher and Natalie, we want you to hear this. Until Mia reflects on her actions and genuinely changes, she is not welcome in our house. So, if she tries to enter while we're away, don't hesitate to turn her away. Understood, Dad. My husband nodded quietly. Then Aria continued.
We've decided not to indulge Mia any further. She has such a wonderful boyfriend. Yet she chooses to live selfishly and even cheat. It's unbelievable. You will have to work and pay back the money you've spent frivolously, Natalie. Please help us with this.
Yes, understood, I replied, and Mia glared at me. Then, with a huff of displeasure, she said,
I'm done with this place. I won't come back ever again. You'll regret ignoring your own daughter, but don't come crying to me later.
With those parting words, she stormed out of the living room. I noticed Mia had left her bag on the floor, so I hurried after her to hand it over. She snatched it roughly.
Mom and Dad said what they said. But if you dare stop me from entering this house just because you're the wife, you'll regret it.
She threatened me in a menacing tone. I hesitated for a moment and stepped back, prompting Aria, who looked concerned, to approach.
Hey, you didn't say anything rude to Natalie, did you?
Mia replied nonchalantly. I didn't say anything. Then she slammed the door and left. Back in the living room, my husband and John were discussing Mia.
So, did you manage to convince her? What's she going to do now?
My husband asked, and John, looking weary, replied.
For now, she's agreed to leave Steven's apartment. I guess she'll rent her own place and start paying back the money she's spent.
3 months later, our lives, once heavily affected by Mia, started to regain some peace. Steven called to thank us, saying Mia had moved out after their discussions. However, we hadn't heard from Mia at all, and we had no idea where she was or what she was doing. While I did feel a bit worried about her, I was mainly relieved. Then, one day, without any warning, she returned. John and my husband were at work, and Aria had gone out shopping with a friend when the doorbell rang. I checked the monitor and saw Mia standing there. Before I could respond, she unlocked the door and entered the house.
The place looks quite different since I've been away. Did you get rid of most of the furniture or something? Oh, you're here? How dare you ignore me ringing the doorbell? Are Dad and my brother at work? Where's Mom?
Mia entered, talking loudly to herself. She was carrying lots of luggage, including a large suitcase and a duffel bag. With a sinking feeling, I answered.
Aria went shopping with a friend.
Mia casually opened her duffel bag, dumped a pile of laundry at my feet, and said,
Please wash these by tomorrow. I'll run out of clothes to wear if you don't do it quickly. What?
Stunned, I stared at her, and Mia, looking angry, went on a tirade.
What do you mean, what? How dare you talk back like that? You're just a wife. I'm the daughter of this house. Mia, I
tried to interject, but she continued her rant like a machine gun.
Oh, and I'm thirsty. Since nothing good comes out when I leave things to you, I'll specify what I want today. I'm in the mood for a café au lait, and I'd love a scone with lots of chocolate chips. If we don't have them at home, go buy some. I'll wait for about 5 minutes.
As she acted as if the recent confrontation hadn't happened, I felt the need to clarify.
Did you inform the in-laws that you'd be coming back today, Mia?
She answered nonchalantly, as if it were the most natural thing.
No, I didn't. If I had told them in advance, they might have changed the locks. But I'm sure once we talk, Dad, Mom, and even my brother will welcome me back. After all, I'm the beloved daughter of this house.
Flabbergasted by her overly optimistic view, I firmly stated.
Then please leave. I cannot go against their wishes when they haven't forgiven you.
Mia, visibly irritated, snapped back.
What? Why should I listen to you? You're just a wife, and I'm the precious daughter of this house. Wives are like housekeepers, right? You should just quietly do as I say. Now get to work for me.
I calmly faced the furious Mia and said, I don't live in this house, you know.
What?
My response seemed utterly unexpected to Mia, and she made a strange noise. While Mia stood there, dumbfounded.
Hello, everyone.
Aria's cheerful voice came from the entrance. I just ran into Christopher and the others. Following Aria, John and my husband also came home, and the house suddenly became lively. The in-laws and my husband were visibly shocked to see Mia. After a few seconds of silence, John spoke up forcefully.
Mia, why are you here? We said you're not welcome until you deeply reflect on and regret your actions.
Mia was taken aback by John's sternness, but soon returned to her usual demeanor.
I've reflected on my actions, that's why I came back. Please forgive me. I'm the daughter of this house, after all.
Her voice was pleading, but John's expression remained grim. Aria and my husband seemed to share John's sentiment, as neither of them came to Mia's defense. Realizing she was at a disadvantage, Mia turned her attention to me and said with a malicious smirk,
By the way, Natalie just said she doesn't live here.
What did this woman do?
Getting kicked out of her home must mean she did something terrible.
Confused by Mia's words, my husband replied,
Huh? We haven't done anything.
Mia, perplexed, continued.
What? You mean my brother was kicked out too? I don't understand. What's going on?
I answered calmly. We weren't kicked out.
Christopher got a job transfer, and since our new home is ready, we decided to move.
My husband added.
That was the plan all along, but the official orders only recently came through. The new place is in the countryside, but it's a nice town.
Clean air, delicious food.
And it's not just us moving, Dad and Mom are relocating too.
Their faces bright with excitement, the in-laws chimed in.
That's right. We're going to live a leisurely life in Hawaii from now on. We've been preparing for this move for years. Fortunately, we found a buyer for this house quickly.
Then Mia became terribly agitated and started to make a fuss.
Wait a minute. You're selling the house? That's why there's hardly any furniture left. I didn't know anything about this. I came back planning to live here. What am I supposed to do now? Stop being so selfish. You're an adult. Take responsibility for your own actions.
Aria scolded her, and Mia burst into tears. While occasionally glancing at us, John, looking exasperated, said,
We heard it from Stephen. Your affair was with a married man, right? Besides paying Stephen back, you're in trouble because the man's wife is demanding compensation. But that's all your own responsibility.
When Mia realized there was no chance John would forgive her, she furiously lifted some of the remaining furniture and tried to throw it at my husband and me.
I hate all of you. Damn it.
As Mia was about to lash out like the other day, John and my husband managed to restrain her. And Arya didn't hesitate to call the police. Mia cried and threw a tantrum like a small child until the police arrived. Afterwards, having nowhere to live, Mia was seen sleeping in parks and internet cafes, doing day labor to barely get by. She used to look like a neat, modern young woman, but now she's completely changed and looks much older. My husband and I moved smoothly and are living peacefully in our new home. The in-laws, who moved to Hawaii, seem to be living leisurely and comfortably, just the two of them. We frequently have video calls with the in-laws, maintaining a good relationship just like when we lived together. Today, being a holiday, the whole family was on a video call with the in-laws. On the computer screen, the in-laws appeared tanned and were smiling warmly. They were playing with our child on the screen. Our baby, still an infant, watched them with a vague expression. Suddenly, our child smiled brightly, and the in-laws cheered with joy. These simple moments of everyday life felt incredibly precious to me.